I guess we're gonna go. Lisa's not here yet, so. You ready?
I just welcome and open and.
Yep, and then turn it over to me. I'll do a little opening thing and then we'll go, okay? All right.
Good evening. Welcome to the December meeting of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. We'll get started and I'll hand it to Roger Steinbrock.
Thank you, Vicki. Thank you, and I have a few housekeeping items for this Zoom meeting. This meeting is being recorded and broadcasted on the city's YouTube channel. Please remember to mute yourself during the meeting when you are not speaking, those of you online. The chat function for this meeting is disabled and all chats will come directly to me. Unless you are participating during the meeting, please turn your video off. This allows the active members participants to be seen on screen. You will still be able to hear the meeting. When you're participating, please turn your video on. If you have any trouble, you can send me a chat, I believe. And then the city does reserve the right to mute people or turn individual videos off to minimize distractions during the meeting. Please remember to state your name each time you speak for the benefit of those participating remotely. And now I'll turn it back to the Vice Chair, Vicki Collier-Akers.
All right.
Collier-Akers, sorry.
No, it's okay. Thank you. Our first agenda item is to review and approve the meeting minutes from last meeting. Are there any comments on the meeting minutes? Seeing none, I'll take a motion.
This is Marilyn Hull. I move approval of the minutes.
Ruth DeWitt, second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we've approved the minutes.
All right, public comment. The public comment on the agenda is incorrect, but I'll read this statement. General public comment on items, issues that are not scheduled on the agenda will be made prior to the regular agenda items. Each person will be limited to 3 minutes for general public comment. The board will not discuss or debate these items nor make recommendations on items presented during this time. Public comment on agenda items listed on the agenda will be taken at the time the item is presented on the agenda and discussed with staff. Each person will be limited to 3 minutes for their comment. Members of the public may provide public comment on multiple agenda items. Okay. Holly, did you have non-agenda items that you'd like to speak to?
Are we able to speak during the agenda item
Yes.
as a public comment on the agenda item, or is this the only time that the public's allowed to speak?
You are able to speak on the agenda items, yes.
All right, then I'll wait for that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Okay.
I don't see any other public comment.
Okay. We will move down to agenda items. The first item is discussion of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board format, and I believe I'm turning it over.
Oh, we're not doing this yet. We're still in the discussion of the agenda item. I forgot.
That's right.
That's still the first one.
Okay.
Is that okay? Am I turning
Yeah,
it to
you're
you for
fine.
that item?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. So at the last meeting, we were asked, or there was a motion for the chair and the vice chair to meet with staff to come up with a format for our meetings moving forward. And the things we heard at that meeting was that we wanted an opportunity to continue the public comment. We wanted an opportunity for reports to be issued and given based on requests from the board members, allowing us time to prepare for those things in future agenda items, as well as making sure that we're able to update you on a regular basis outside of the things that the city wants to bring, but things that you wanted to bring. So we did meet, and the agenda as it lays before you reflects that conversation. So what we want to do is just go over it, make sure that all those areas are covered within this. And if you so approve, this is how we move forward with our meetings, knowing that these can be modified at any time. You know, this is, again, we're starting from scratch, new format, so if we need to make modifications, the city's open to it as long as the board is open to that and, you know, votes to do so. So that being said, you know, obviously the first standard is the approval of the meetings. We did maintain the public comment at the beginning so that public does not need to wait if they want to communicate something till the end of the meeting or till an agenda item comes up. This gives them an opportunity to bring up things that you might want to discuss and add to a future agenda item at the very beginning that may not already be on the agenda for any given meeting. So that gives that open time. And then we have the regular agenda items that the chair and I and, the vice chair or the liaison will discuss on a monthly basis as to what we will be talking about on any given week. And hopefully we will try as much as possible to respect the time of the board, trying to keep us close to the 1 hour time period, understanding that public comment may extend that. Or some discussions might require more in-depth conversation, but we want to be respectful of the time and not have you wondering what time we're going to get out of here any particular, meeting. So we will keep an eye on that so that we're not trying to cover too much in any one meeting, if possible. Then we'll have reports and roundtable. So this, when needed, I'll provide, either my staff will provide reports, and these could be items that you've asked for, or just regularly occurring items. Again, we want to be respectful to the time, so it doesn't mean that we're going to necessarily do this every time, but we want to keep it on the agenda, especially if something is requested. We want to make sure that we have that on the agenda. So that area is there. And then we also want to give an opportunity for the board to bring up any ideas or any questions that they may have. These may not be they don't have to be fully discussed at this point, but any, curiosities, anything that might lead to the next agenda item, which is number E, which is future agenda items. So we can start to accumulate a list of those things that the board desires to talk about. Again, giving us enough time to prepare, either between months or, we're saying, hey, in March, bring this back. We do plan, and we can develop this as Lisa and I go through this, on having some regularly scheduled agenda items that wouldn't be necessarily every month. For instance, a budget update that might happen the June of every month as we're in the process with the city, or something that comes at some periodic interval that we'll insert in here. But as well as any items that the board feels that they want to discuss would come in the future agenda. And of course, we might have to prioritize on that on a monthly basis. If we say, hey, we have 5 things stacked up for next month, there's no way that we can do all that we can reprioritize during that agenda item. And then, of course, a calendar, which will include our next meeting. I also want to encourage our staff or, special events or anything to provide dates for any upcoming events that might interest the park or the public if they're listening. And I think, and that's it, and then the adjournment. So based on our conversation last week and the conversations that Vicki and Lisa and I have, I guess the question would be to open it up for you to discuss and let us know if you think this is an appropriate format, if we left anything out, or if we need to treat anything differently.
I think that helps a lot.
Okay.
I mean, as far as just giving us some direction on what to expect. It doesn't sound that much different. I think there's some guidelines in there that's going to help us, and we're still going to get information. We're going to share information, and so there's going to be, I think that helps. Yeah,
it'll just be really the agenda items that we're talking about. We want to make sure that they fit within those boundaries that they've given us, but yeah, respect that we do want to hear from the public, we want to hear from you, and we want this to be information sharing. So.
And if I can just interject too, the thing that I would say is that roundtable time, because a lot of times we were just talking with the chair or the vice chair, and there really wasn't any discussion with the full board. That will help develop those items for future agenda items with the full board, so that staff, we can go back and research and do some of the due diligence that we would need to do to present, and probably answer some of those questions that you may have ahead of time. I think that's something. The other thing we did add in this was a little bit more description to each one of the items, as well as what the action is. That's something that Louise asked us to put in, and I think it makes a lot of sense. So, thank you for that.
You're welcome. So I think it calls for a vote.
Okay. Any additional comments?
Ms. Marilyn Hull, I have a quick question. If a member of the public speaks during the general public comment, will they understand and have the right expectations about whether that's going to be discussed or followed up on, just so they come in knowing that it's worth their time to be here?
Right, and I would say that with the agenda, I didn't realize that the template got changed, and that's why it has the police board information on there, and I didn't get that changed. So it does say in there on the agenda, what it should say is that each person will be limited to 3 minutes for general public comment. The board will not discuss or debate these items, nor make recommendations to item during that time. But during that roundtable period, you could bring it up in discussion for us to put it on a future agenda item and to bring those answers back to the next meeting even.
Yeah.
So there wasn't ever a mechanism for that, and that's one of the things that was lacking, and I think by Louise having that roundtable time really helps with that accommodation.
Great, thank you.
Any last comments? All right, at this time, any actions? Is anybody willing to make, to move that we accept this structure?
I would make the motion to approve the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board format.
Would second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Let me step back one time and one step here, and I'm sorry to do this, but we are stating that we will have public comment after each agenda item. I don't think we are allowed for that prior to the vote taking place. Correct?
What?
We're saying we have an agenda.
Oh, right.
We have a public comment
right.
after each
That's
agenda
true.
item. So I
That's
think we
true.
need to allow
Yes.
for that.
Okay.
Yes, that's what we typically have done when so I guess,
So an amendment to that?
well, we just, first of all, first, I think if there's anybody in the public that would like to comment on this item, that's the thing.
Okay.
And Holly, did you have anything on this item that you would like to discuss? I don't,
No,
okay, thank
no,
you.
I don't know if I'm on or not.
You're on now, but we were talking about just the agenda and the format, and you don't have.
Exactly, no, I'm just here to talk about the Outdoor Aquatic Center.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, okay, so I think we're okay with what we've done, okay?
Okay.
Thank you for catching that, though.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, I was going to clarify, so we can have public comment after any agenda?
Yes, yeah, so
Just wanted to clarify that.
because what that does for us, so what we'll do is, like, if we have an agenda item, staff will present, then you'll discuss, then the chair opens it up for public comment, then you can bring it back to the board and ask questions of staff based on what's presented. See, what happens is when we just have public comment, staff isn't prepared. So that's why we want to make sure that we have that time so staff are prepared with the answers, that they may not have answers to their questions. So that's why we need to have that space in there. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. We'll move on to the next agenda item, which is a presentation by staff about the unmistakable identity.
Louise, can you share that?
Yeah.
To the,
Why is this mouse so
I know,
crazy? What
it is
it
crazy.
doing?
Gotta be quick.
Jeez.
They're all over the place. Okay, that's screen two, so that would be it, yeah.
If you go
Okay,
to
it's
the
here.
lower left of the actual,
It's showing.
no, go to the big image.
The big image.
To advance, there should be buttons that show up. There you
Oh.
go.
That's it. Okay. Let me move this. Okay. All right, so what we're presenting today is a request for, we're running this through both our boards, both the Parks Board and the Cultural Arts Commission. We're proposing to the governing body to officially name our department. And this is happening at next week's commission meeting, so we're running it by both boards for their recommendation in support of this. So this is a presentation that is typically scheduled, each commitment and within our strategic plan and outcome is presents to the commission. So this is part of that with the additional request for approval of a name change. So we've tied both together so we can have these, the update on the unmistakable identity and the request. And I think they fit in well for this. So again, this is a first step. We haven't taken this to the Arts Commission yet. That'll be on Wednesday. So this is the first public setting of this. Yes.
Luis, is that going to be the proposed name?
No, sir.
No?
No.
Oh, okay.
Not the proposed name. Unmistakable identity is our outcome. And I'll talk about that in just a minute. And that'll make more sense of why that's in the presentation. So the strategic plan unmistakable identity is the outcome that I champion as the Director of Parks, Recreation, and Culture for the city. So we're going to be talking about that. I'm going to have also Porter come up and talk about culture within the city of Lawrence and what it means and what we've historically done and what we will be doing in the future, how it ties into the master plan that you will be hopefully hearing about in January. Then we go into Parks, Recreation, and Culture. This is the proposed name, Parks, Recreation, and Culture, or PRC. So that's what we're asking here. And that's why it ties into the presentation about culture and what we're tying them together. Talk a little bit about the background of where we are as far as naming is concerned, propose the official name change, the requested action from both the boards and the commission, and then I'll give you an opportunity for questions at the end, if there are any. So here's what we're talking about when we talk about unmistakable identity. The city has adopted a strategic plan, and within that strategic plan, there are 5 outcomes. One of them being unmistakable identity, the other one strong and welcoming neighborhoods, safe and secure, prosperity and economic security, and connected city. Within that, unmistakable identity, again, because of what we do as a Parks, Recreation, and Culture Department, it's fitting for us to spearhead that outcome. Now, within each 5 of these outcomes, and let me just read what unmistakable identity is for everybody. Lawrence is a welcoming community, synonymous with arts, diverse culture, fun, and a quintessential downtown. City parks and community events contribute to the vibrancy experienced by all people in Lawrence. So that's what the unmistakable identity outcome is. Within unmistakable identity, and within the other 4 outcomes, we also have commitments that the city has made. So they're saying, this is what the city does and who we are. This is how we do those things. All right? So within the outcome, we have 5 commitments. This next slide shows how those commitments fall within unmistakable identity. So, for instance, community engagement, commitments 1 and 2 are community engagement. So we measure our key performances expectations based on these commitments. So we're saying we're trying to move the needle in each given responsibility that we have to move the needles on these measures. So 1 and 2, for instance, talking about community engagement, is percentage of residents who are satisfied with the park system, as well as others that are, or percentage of people who are satisfied with cultural opportunities and related events. So what I did here is I went in and made in light blue those that are specifically affecting art and culture within the city. So 3 and 4, efficient and effective processes. We're talking about the number of people who have visited one of our recreation centers or one of our cultural partners. And then also measuring the number of people who have come to specific events. And we do that in partnership with Explore Lawrence and Placer AI to give us some of those measures. We also have commitments within equity and inclusion. So you can see there are 2 within here, 5 and 6, that talk about those BIPOC populations that see the community as welcoming, as well as those who have celebrated or who believe that their culture is celebrated. So again, I don't want to read all of them, but you can see how the commitments and the outcomes intermingle. And this is the same for all outcomes. I'm just highlighting here the ones in unmistakable identity and those key performance indicators. So again, anything the board does, we want to be able to weave it into these things. And within that, there's flexibility, but this is what we want to go back and attach to. All right, so again, here's just an overview of those five outcomes that we're talking about: community engagement, effective and efficient processes, or effective processes. And this is an example of how we're doing each of those things, or how we strive to do each of these, meet each of these commitments. So again, just an overview, but these are, again, through a lens of art and culture, because we can do this for other aspects of what we do, but tying this into our cultural identity and offerings.
Are you going to do that?
Am I going to do what?
Do this similar thing for other initiatives?
Not for this presentation, but yes, that is how we function already. I'm just putting this in a presentation form to share at the commission meeting. But these are the conversations we have when we meet. This is how does this.
I just want to make sure that the programming that Gail does, all that stuff gets.
Yeah, this is only for the presentation that's happening next Tuesday. The commission.
Okay.
Regarding unmistakable identity and other departments, on a monthly, at least a monthly basis, we come up and do a similar presentation, but it's focused. This one's focused just on this one thing for now.
Okay.
Okay, so this is where I'm going to turn it over to Porter, and he can talk a little bit about art and culture within Lawrence.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Nice to see you. Actually, really happy to talk about this because this is why I came to Lawrence in 2015. I was hired as the Director of Arts and Culture. My journey has been a meandering one, but here I am again. And the reason I say that is this was part of the survey that we did for the cultural plan. And it's kind of humorous, but when I arrived here, everybody told me, well, we're an arts town. And I'd say, what does that mean? Nobody could really answer the question. We're just an arts town. It's like, we need to know what that means. And so this survey was fantastic, and I love this particular question, which was, which arts, culture, and heritage sites are important for Lawrence to offer, whether you go or not? So whether people are actually participating in arts and culture directly or not, they still show that there's real value, and people get that. So this shows, if 2.5 is the medium, or the middle point, everything goes over the halfway point. And it's interesting because it also, sort of prioritizes what people think are most important as you go down the list. So I just find this a really valuable survey instrument, and I've seen it bolstered by other surveys. And even the survey we've done for the master plan for Parks and Rec, indicated the interest in arts and culture and events and those types of things. So even post-COVID, I think much of this holds, and I'll add one more thing. Americans for the Arts just released a really interesting survey they've done nationally that also bolsters everything I'm talking about here on a national front. I think they did that in response to COVID to sort of re-amplify the importance of arts and culture and how things are changing, particularly after COVID. So it's just interesting that all this is tying together, and I think it's a really good time to have these conversations. Can you advance? So then what I did was I went back and just did, this is a non-scientific, so to speak, and if anybody sees errors in this, please let me know. But sort of went back, because what I keep hearing is about this renaissance that seemed to occur in the 1970s. That's when the Lawrence Cultural Arts Commission was established. Their role was established. The Lawrence Arts Center was established in 1975, started in the Carnegie Building way back when, and obviously grew in its own value at that time. Lawrence Community Theater, Mary Doveton and everybody involved in that, Theater Lawrence, created and held the first performance at the Carnegie Building as well. So a lot of stuff was happening in the 70s, a lot of passion about arts and culture. And then the city's public art policy, which frankly is a very visionary sort of policy the way it's written. The problem is it's not the right sort of instrument because it's a resolution and not an ordinance. So to really make that a real thing, it really has to be an ordinance, which frankly is included in our matrix as part of the master plan at some point in the future. The Outdoor Downtown Sculpture Exhibition, the history, I'm sure many of you know, the history of Eldon Teft is pretty incredible. He was a dedicated sculptor, made many sculptures around town. He also started the International Sculpture Center as a young student in the sculpture department at various colleges. I knew all about that. I had no idea it was actually born here, but because it was Eldon Teft's passion that started that. The Community Arts Grant Program was established in 1991, and so far we've had 240 grants awarded, which is over $330,000 in grant awards over that time. So that's a real investment in the arts too. Of course, the Phoenix Awards. This is the 25th anniversary year of the Phoenix Awards, so I'm really excited about that. Nominations will be starting soon, so stay tuned to that. We have an artist that was selected from last year who's already working on those awards for next year, or for this year now. Actually, next year, excuse me. The new building for the Lawrence Arts Center was built in 2002. Final Fridays was established in 2010. That was a big effort nationally as well to really try to bolster interest in the arts and benefit local artists, and it's been very successful and is still going today. Theater Lawrence opened their new building in 2013, which has been very successful as well. The Art Commission put together a new mural review criteria back in 2015, which I think has been really effective in helping muralists understand that it's not necessarily just painting on a building, but also the agreement that you have with the building owner, copyright issues, all that kind of nuanced stuff that's so important. The citywide cultural plan was approved by the Cultural Arts Commission and received by the City Commission in 2015. That's when I first started here and just saw how much energy goes into arts and culture here in town. And then 2017, we did the Arts and Economic Prosperity Study with Americans for the Arts, which also was very revealing about spending related to the arts and how that does tie directly to economic impact in the community. And then happily, we were able to receive a $150,000 National Endowment for the Arts Group in 2022 to provide COVID recovery assistance to 17 arts groups in town. So we were able to do that. So yeah, just this shows, I'm sure you guys have stories and other things that you know as well, but this really shows an amazing foundation for arts in this town, arts and culture, I should say. And so we just wanted to share that and make sure people are aware of it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so what we are expecting to have in hand, hopefully within the next couple of weeks, is the Master Plan for Parks, Recreation, Art, and Culture, which is what we're calling right now because that is our working title. So what we'll see in there when we get this is that they are making recommendations for us to support the arts and continue to support the arts. And some of those include strengthening programming partnerships, expanding cultural grants, developing signature city events, greater collaboration with special events, engaging with indigenous community and arts and culture, support of affordable housing for artists, creating some landmark art, outdoor event space, and things of that nature. There's some more detail and kind of priorities when we see the master plan, but these are some of the general areas that they're saying that a city like Lawrence and of Lawrence should be pursuing. So again, our hope, and I'll just mention, is that we'll bring this to you all in the January meeting in a joint session with the Arts Commission once we get their okay on Wednesday for that. So here's a little background of our Parks, Recreation, and Culture, why we want to change this. Currently, Lawrence Recreation, or here's the history about it actually. Lawrence Recreation Commission existed prior to 1965. In 1965, it was terminated according to the research I can do, that I could find. The department, with its current name, was codified in 1979. What happened between those years, my research didn't go down that far. But since 1979, we have officially, with it in the books, and the code been called LPRD. Now in 2022, when we added, well, right before we added a porter to the staff in Parks and Recreation, the name Parks, Recreation, Art, and Culture started getting used, but it was never actually codified. It's just been that. It appeared in a few documents, and we've kind of gone with that, including in the master plan. That's what it's been calling it in there since we've been working under that name, but it's never been made official. So right now, because of, and we, as I mentioned, we serve two boards, or we're served by two boards, if you will, this board and then the Cultural Arts Commission. So what we're proposing the name change to be is Parks, Recreation, and Culture. And the next slide will explain why. And I know that it sounds like we may be dropping art, but we really feel that, actually, this is here. Actually, I think I have to reverse the way I present these. But the reason that we're saying culture is, and really removing the word art, first of all, nobody has really adopted that within the department. We know what it means when we hear it, but we feel that something that flows a little better and is a little bit more concise in its manner is beneficial for us. Now, we also feel that art and all these other things that we've been talking about are part of culture, part of Lawrence's culture, and they're inseparable. So when we talk about the culture that exists in Lawrence, it encompasses artists and arts and concerts and sculptures and everything that makes up the fabric of, and I think I've used that a few times, of the fabric of a city. So that's the proposal. We feel that by changing the name, that it strengthens our department, or officially naming it, strengthens our department's position to continue to support, present, and partner with those organizations that can provide, that continue to provide art and culture and enrichment to the community. We feel that the name impacts unmistakable identity specifically, and who people or how people think of Lawrence. And we want to, of course, we want to be known for parks, recreation, facilities, programming, but we also want to be known for the culture that exists, and that includes traditions, and it includes heritage, and it includes future thinking and innovation and all that. So again, while it respects heritage and also promotes diversity, and that is our hope throughout this department, and to have that all-inclusive name within a descriptor of what we do. So let me just go back. Here is, and I think this was supposed to be Porter's. That's why I got thrown off here. So when we talk about, and I was asked earlier what we saw our vision for our department was as far as art and culture, and I said, well, we're already doing a lot of this thing. Parks and Recreation is often the venue, if you will, for art and culture, whether it's Art in the Park, whether it's the city band on Wednesday nights. We already are entrenched in that. Our programming, we do arts programs, we do dance. Whether we do that forever or we depend on other partners, that remains to be seen. But that is part of what we do, where we do it. It's in our venues, it's in our community centers, it's in, it's in our green spaces and open spaces. So, a lot of these things we're already doing. Now it's a matter of celebrating and making that known. KRPA and NRPA, which are the state and national Parks and Recreation Associations, are very much interested in that conversation of how does culture happen within parks and recreation systems, because it's not just, four walls with gym space and basketball hoops and green space. It's actually, a place where people can express themselves. And fitness and dance and Zumba and all these ways that these things really intersect. And trying to promote that. Art and culture, or parks and culture, don't necessarily have to live separately. They do intertwine in many ways. So I will say that Porter has submitted and it was approved to present 2 panels at Kansas Recreation Parks Association coming at the end of January about that intersection. One of the things that we'll be talking about, and you're welcome to chime in, but please do.
So as soon as I got into the office here and went to the Kansas Recreation and Parks Association, I heard people talking about the arts, but throughout my tenure, which started in St. Louis actually, at Lawr Sculpture Park, back in 1993, as a matter of fact. Arts and culture is often spoken, doing arts and culture on purpose in Parks and Recreation. Finding that intentional perspective that we can do that and really leverage it in a beneficial way. And that can be so simple. At Lawr Sculpture Park, I used to go out and buy muslin, the cloth that's very inexpensive, stretch it between 2 trees, give the kids some paint, and they're off to the races. Kids are so naturally creative. So it became a recreational and arts and culture event because they're running around the park, but they're painting on this thing. So I just see a natural connection there. So anyway, starting to talk about that, my intention at KRPA is to really start building a network. So I know others are doing this. Some are doing it more proactively than others, but I want to create that resource for people to see us who have been doing this and know that we're available to them as mentors and support for what they're trying to do. So I'm really excited to step into a more leadership role, and actually KRPA also developed a series of tools, one of which includes economic development related to arts and culture. So they're tuned into it. Now I just want to kind of bolster that as we go along. And we're also doing the music census, which we did with Nick Carswell and Lawrence Music Alliance, which is also very revealing about the value of arts and culture and music, which sometimes doesn't get included in that arts and culture conversation.
Thank you. Okay, so here's what the requested action is of you. We're starting with board recommendations, advisory board recommendations. Then really what we're asking is for the commission to approve the name Parks, Recreation, and Culture as a department, at which time, if they so do, we will go back and look at ordinances and chat and kind of go through the list of those that would need some revision. Go through that probably the first quarter and then go back to commission to have them officially approve it. But prior to doing that, we're asking for both of our serving boards to approve that or recommend that as a name to the commission. So that is pretty much it. And if you recommend, this will change to recommended, voted to recommend, so that when it gets to the commission, they know that we have come through you for your input, feedback, and approval. So with that, I'm open to questions.
I have a question. Not that it's a big thing with just the PRC, but was there a reason to leave off Lawrence, LPRC, like LPRD? I mean, as far as,
None of the other departments, other than fire, and have LPRD, or L in front of it. It was just ours. And one of the reasons is PRC, although it is a play on the word, on park,
right,
we kind of wanted to go in that direction. So we were thinking of other ones like Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Services, so parks, but again, we want something that we can use, and it makes sense to those outside. So LP are, what is it? You see, you add a letter, I can't even say it
it's like
anymore.
LPRD, I just from a marketing standpoint, I don't know, just
Well-
from the Lawrence.
But we are looking at Lawrence.
Right.
That's our citizens. So hopefully, I mean, it's just like MSO. MSO is the operations of your city in many different ways. And to me, because we are now looked at as the city of Lawrence. That's one of the things that this new branding has done too. We're all part of the city, and we're just a department of the overarching city. And it's not, basically what happens is people get in silos a lot of times within organizations, and then they create their own identity. And we're really looking behind the flame and the strategic plan, and that's really what we all are. The MSO, the PRC, or, all the different, the city clerk's office, the, communications office, the legal area, we're all the city of Lawrence, and that's our new brand, so.
I actually have a kind of a question that actually
Sure.
dovetails with that. So you have two different boards, organizations, commissions that advise, and I know we just went through a whole restructuring of these, so I don't expect anything to change immediately. But the two advisory groups are now advising in two different tracks, two different areas of interest. Is there an intent or thought about how to create some synergies, create some unsiloing of these things, or to, in fact, get rid of one of the two?
There's certainly no plan on that for now. The two boards have existed separately for forever, right? I mean,
Right.
it's just that they were, not forever, but since
And-
before.
They both existed.
Well,
Right.
let me interject too.
Yeah, I was going to say, one is an advisory board and one is a commission,
Right.
which has a little bit more
Right.
teeth to that organization rather than just advising. So, but Porter, you can speak more.
No, I was going to say the same thing. They're not, one's an advisory board solely, the other one, the Art Commission actually has a budget, runs programs, that type of thing. So there is a difference. And it wasn't us that created that structure. It was the task force that did all the work behind it, and then it was approved by the city commission. So there's nothing in the works right now, as Luis mentioned, but, certainly and I think a lot, to your point, I think I agree with you, and I think a lot of this is going to happen organically.
Yes.
As we get into different things that are happening, and it's having two different perspectives from two different groups of representatives is probably valuable, so.
And I think it would be hard to have an advisory board and something with some budgetary thing, how you combine those, especially that probably in that task force that John led, that probably was some of the discussion too, is how would you basically put these things together? So that, again, like he said, I think over time, there may be some new developments in that front from this board as well as the commission, the Arts Commission as well.
Yeah, and I want to keep it out there, as roundtables and future agenda items, and say, hey, we'd like to meet, that's not off the table in any way, shape, or form. That would go contrary to what we're saying, that we're integrated, right? So they have their place to, and we'll continue to take the things that have been taken to them. We'll bring the things to you that should be, but I do think, and that we should respect and expect that there will be areas where we want to combine efforts, ideas, and moving forward. So yeah, just keep it as an option as we move forward.
Good.
Yep.
This is, I don't know anything about branding or titles, but the Oxford comma is missing. And in some
here.
roles I carry, that means a lot.
I'm going to ask our branding manager. P, R, and C.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's so funny because in journalism, we don't use the Oxford comma, so it's kind of funny. But I've had discussions in my office with part-time employees and full-time
Yeah.
employees now about that same thing.
Perhaps we need to establish a comma board.
Maybe.
I'm not
So-
going to volunteer for that one.
Never thought of that.
So I don't want to ignore what Lee said. So is there any strong feeling that it should be LPRC aside from, what we stated?
I mean, if this is something common in all departments.
So, yeah.
But we also,
Thanks.
oh, sorry. We also live in a county where there are two other, there's the Baldwin Recreation Commission and the Eudora Recreation.
Whatever Eudora has.
Yeah, Parks and Recreation, I'm not sure. So in some ways, it kind of makes sense to have Lawrence, but I can understand the justification as well.
And maybe I would just throw out there the tendency to lean into initialisms where it becomes lost if you don't know what those initials mean. You were just mentioning MSO, and
You don't even know what that is.
I don't even know
right?
what that is.
And let me tell you, a lot of people in the city don't know what that is. Because they merged everything together at one point, but.
So just maybe being very mindful of.
Sure.
Of
Well, again, I think at the end of the day, that we want to be known as the city of Lawrence,
yes.
that we provide services to the city of Lawrence, and it doesn't matter if it's streets, water, trash, sewer, parks and recreation services, we're all the city. I mean, I think that's really what we're trying to do here.
Yeah. And, I still want to take it under advisement, because I think it's somewhat
So why wouldn't
valid.
the fire department, police department go along with
Well, fire is Lawrence Douglas County Fire Medical, so that hasn't changed. And LPD?
Lawrence Police Department is typical for police departments. Those are two safety agencies that you need to know that you're calling the right one when you're in need of help. I think that's what it kind of boils down to. Although I will say it's humorous, but there's a Lawrence, Massachusetts, and I've actually fielded phone calls from irate customers and finally said, "Where are you?" And they said, "Well, I'm in Massachusetts." Like, you're calling the wrong Lawrence. So that can happen, but that's a national thing. But I think what might help here, since I was involved in this branding change, if you can go back to the first page, keep in mind, sorry, let me jump back up here. I can't help but jump in on this. So go all the way to the first
Okay, this goes way.
the cover page. Well, one thing you'll notice is that throughout this documentation, our brand is there. So the City of Lawrence, Kansas brand is showing up in multiple ways in this circumstance. So PRC will never not be part of Lawrence, and it will never not be identified that way. But I think what has happened, and Roger mentioned this, is the silo issue, which a lot of cities suffer. Police and fire, frankly, are always siloed because they're very specific in what they do. They have their own identity, which from a brand perspective is very frustrating, actually, because it's hard to make them fully part of that entity. So I think it's mutually beneficial that we're connected together and not seen as separate entities. And when you identify, there's a knee-jerk human reaction to want to brand who you are, who you think you are, versus what's the brand that we all agree to. So that would be my pitch and part of the rationale, I think, behind this.
All that being said,
Sorry.
no, not at all. All that being said, we still have an opportunity to go to the commission next Tuesday and give them the option of both names. If there's a strong feeling by the board and you so choose to direct us to do that, commission, give us an answer to what you would call. Now, we don't have to if everybody agrees that Parks, Recreation, and Culture is sufficient, but if there's a strong feeling, again, I don't want to ignore the sentiment or the ideas or the points that were brought up. And if there's a debate or question about it, we can go to the commission with it.
Well, I think a really bold initiative would be to call it Parks, Culture, and Recreation. That would,
Yeah.
John, what difference does that make in your mind?
well, you don't have to go do the PRC. And it just kind of throws this whole thing, into like, what happened here? What are we doing here? I'm not proposing it. I'm just
Yeah, saying it's
saying,
interesting.
to me, it doesn't undermine any of the three categories. It just resets them.
This is Marilyn Hull. I like the recommended name. I like having Parks and Recreation sequential in the name, and I like the change to just culture. I would note that there's an organization in our community already using PRC.
We know there's not one in the city because we asked about that. Is there one you said?
Not in city government. There's an organization, I think is maybe a nonprofit, but I think it's a mental health organization. And as I'm looking at their website, PRC is at the top. So just something to be aware of. I don't think it's necessarily a problem, but it isn't to me. I don't know if it would be to them.
Well, we will be creating a branded logo because our city logo
Yeah.
is our logo, from what I understand. I mean, that's kind of what we've always gone with.
Yeah, and it will still be known as Parks, Recreation, and Culture, and Parks, Recreation, and Culture Department when it's in that context. But our initials or our, I guess, acronym, whatever would be PRC in shortened version. But the full name would, of course, Parks, Recreation, and Culture.
Any other board comments?
Yeah, I like the, I agree with a lot, most of the presentation. I mean, the intersectionality is already there, right? I mean, it's like organic, like you said, a lot of it will happen organically. There was a bullet point that stated something about strengthening the programming partnerships. And I think that would be a great future conversation for us as we kind of move into this. I do like PRC as well and the sequential Parks and Rec as well. I'm pretty indifferent about the L being added or not. I would be okay with it going to the commission and them deciding, unless anybody has a huge push. I tend to enjoy Lawrence being the focal point of, branding, but I do understand the silo.
So just practically speaking, what it would look like if we ever did that, it would be that logo that says Lawrence, City of Lawrence, or Lawrence, Kansas, and then underneath it would say Lawrence Parks and Recreation
Well,
Department.
that's what I was
there's
gonna ask,
Yeah.
whether or not that logo was gonna be in that PRC board.
Right, so,
And now that looks just fine if that's the way it's presented on shirts or letterhead.
Correct.
Or anything else, that Lawrence is still prevalent someplace
Yep.
with PRC.
and it will be.
Because if just PRC and then with another organization having it, there could be confusion without Lawrence.
Sure,
being
sure.
there.
No, but the branding practices moving forward are that the City of Lawrence logo is in there and the department is named underneath or some,
So the department would still
Yeah.
have Lawrence.
otherwise it'd be COLPRC, City of Lawrence Parks, Recreation, and
And
Culture.
people would probably still say LPRC.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, to define it.
Any other board comments? Any public comment?
And I
On
don't believe
this
there is,
agenda
she
item.
was saying, Holly, did you have any comments on this? I don't believe she did.
No, I'm just here for the pool. Thank you.
Just want to make sure we didn't raise any other questions for you.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
Anybody willing to offer a motion?
I would motion to approve
Well,
PRC,
to recommend.
Recommend.
City Commission to,
approve of PRC.
yes, there you go.
John Nalbandian, I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
We'll
Thank
approve that
you.
recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the work on that, too.
You're welcome.
All right, moving on, our next agenda item is an update on the Outdoor Aquatic Center.
Oh, you're gonna need to stop sharing that one.
Oh, okay.
Up top there in the red box, there you go.
Oh, I'm not, are you driving, Kurt? I just tried to. Oh, okay. No, to run off the
Okay.
bridge.
I thought you wanted me to be in control over here.
Attention to the man.
Oops, it didn't go.
Oh, man.
Wait,
Okay.
and then share.
Where's the, oh, here we go.
Did he move it again on you? That thing does have a mind of its own. There you go.
Okay, so. Okay, and in case anything comes up, which I don't expect it would, I do have the project manager from MSO, Municipal Services and Operations, on the line, if anything comes up specifically. But generally, I wanted to give an update of where we are with the Outdoor Aquatic Center, outdoor pool, as it went to the commission on November 19th. So on the 19th, the commission approved to enter into the contract for design services with SFS. The amount of the contract is $548,000, $548,330, which includes what they'll be designing is the maintaining the existing 50-meter pool as well as the water area of the shallow pool that currently coexist and they share systems. So the rehabilitation of the major pool will also include separating the shallow depth area from the main pool. That's going to be explored during the schematic design portion of this. Then some additional work was also approved, which is adding a new accessible ramp to the main pool. Replacing new water slides, no new ones, no additional ones, I'm sorry. And renovating the existing shade structure, that circular one, as well as renovating the building with some ADA drainage upgrades, entrance improvements for the check-in or the queuing process, and the changing rooms as well. As I said, some more privacy and some improvements in that realm. So basically, this is what the project that they'll be looking at and designing for schematic. Again, it's rehabilitate and repair the deep portion of the pool to maintain the 50 meters and separating and reconstruct the low depth or the zero depth portion. What that's going to look like is what we'll be working on through schematic design. Does it, right now the entrance is on the far side of the pool, and does that make the most sense? So we'll be exploring that during the time of the schematic design. Everything else will be the same as it is. Now, keeping in mind that some of the concrete work and all that was part of the initial scope will still happen. And then again, the improvements inside here have not been detailed as to what those will be, but that will be mostly interior type of upgrades in the building. So here's a tentative schedule. We met with the contractor, with the design team earlier this week, late last week, I'm sorry, to come up with a new proposed schedule for the project moving forward from here to construction. So we're looking at, for schematic design, likely about 2 months, 6 to 8 weeks worth of time. And then design development, taking another 6 to 8 weeks, up to 2 months. And then construction documents and permitting, taking about another 3 months. Now, throughout the schematic design, once we start getting pen to paper and looking at some of the options and alternatives and some of the ideas, we'll begin a community engagement process that'll last approximately 4 months. So some of these dates might be pushed out depending on what the community engagement process looks like, and we will be working, our Director of Community Engagement and Communications is here. But that will be a very integral part of the process. Not a lot to do. We're reconstructing a similar pool, but we want to make sure that we're keeping not just the board, but the public aware of the decisions being made moving forward. So that'll be integral, and then, of course, we move into the documents, the permitting, advertising for the contractor, the rewarding of the contract, or awarding of the contract, and then the notice to proceed. So based on this, we're looking potentially at a construction window starting September of next year. We were hoping to start earlier this year. There's still hope that we will open second half of 2026, so that we're not losing that whole season. The hope is to be able to do that. If we keep things moving and flowing the way we're planning, that's still the hope. Knowing construction and all that, there's a little bit of a level of confidence that we lose as we go that far out. But we'll have better ideas. We really won't know the schedule until this goes to bid and we get the responses from the contractors as to what that window is. So right now, we're still, our design team, our engineers are thinking this could still happen within that window, but the certainty won't come until this is awarded. Okay, so that is basically it. Just an update, and as I said, as we go through the process, we'll make sure to bring back regular reports to you and to include that as part of our public engagement that we'll be doing at the time. Okay.
Okay, are there comments from the board members about this report? Questions?
This is Marilyn Hull. What do you envision the community engagement part of this looking like?
Well, I can tell you that our first meeting is scheduled for this Thursday morning with the design team, with community outreach, or public and communications. So we're imagining focus groups, information sessions, open houses, but I don't know what that's going to be yet. We'll probably know by this time next week what that'll entail. But several public forums in addition to reporting, to this board and to the city commission along the way for their approvals. Yeah, we won't be approving the final design until the commission gets our approval, so we plan on having several touch points on the way between now and then.
Any other comments or questions?
So the overall cost of the project hasn't changed?
Mm-mm.
It's still at
6.1 is the budget we have, based on not doing some of the changes that we were proposing. That is expected to come down a little bit, but we are adding other things such as the ADA pool, or the ADA ramp and things like that that weren't in the original. So the final numbers, we have that budget. That's the maximum. So as we develop the project, some of the interior improvements to the building, those numbers might shift a little bit, but we're talking about 6.1 at the top end, including all soft costs. So construction, I believe, was 4.2 of that 6.1.
When you say construction, in a renovation project what's the infrastructure look like below that?
Well, I'm not going to even attempt to answer that. So we have Mark who can answer some of that, and we have Jake on the line. We don't have the engineering team here. It's too expensive, but we can answer questions that.
So that could come up later in terms of cost when you start
No, that's,
into it, or?
I believe, and you can speak to that, I believe the mechanicals are already factored into them, but I'll let somebody with more technical knowledge answer.
Hi, Mark Hecker. The things we did up to the point of design, we did go in and do pressure testing of all the piping systems to understand if the pumps and pressures were still holding, which they were. So we know that's good underneath the concrete. Now, in the plan, we're basically going to tear up all the deck all the way around the pool. So we'll have an opportunity to fix things like lights and, other piping that may need to visibly be looked at. But I think we have pretty good potential. We did the core sampling and all the concrete at the bottom of the pool. So we know where the problem areas are in the pool structure itself, so that it's basically a big bathtub. So you have to hold water in the bathtub. So we know where the cracks are. The zero depth is by far the worst area. So that's the one where, it's probably all going to get removed. And then however we restructure, it's up to the design group. But the basic 50-meter pool will basically stay as it is. We'll just fix everything that's broke. So does that answer your question?
I think so. I mean, just from a renovation standpoint, sometimes that costs more than starting over. And then the life expectancy of something like that, are we going to have to do this 10 years from now?
We shouldn't, because we're basically going in and correcting everything that we can see as problematic now. So in other words, how far do you go on concrete? Tear out and replace. So it's kind of like doing roads. How long do you keep patching the road before you go in and just replace the whole thing? I think in theory, this should get us probably a 20-year lifespan on that pool box. So, we don't know that. But if we fix everything we know that is broken or marginal right now, we should get pretty good life out of it. The deck, honestly, the concrete flat surface around it is probably the worst part of the whole pool structure, just because the pool itself has moved quite a bit. So it's caused cracking, and if you go walk around, you can see where we've patched it every year, and it's usually between the pools or where the pool one end is sunk. So.
Can you go back to the picture on slide 2?
Just a second, let me share again so we can get that. Oh, that's the wrong one, isn't it? That's the other one, sorry. Where did it go?
It says me too.
Yeah, it does. I don't know why. Oh, maybe I didn't share it. Stop, wait a minute. Hold on, one moment.
No, you got it. Oh, well,
What?
you had it.
But it's showing it was showing the other thing. Okay, wait. And share. Okay. Then we want to go up here.
Oh, because you're resuming slideshow.
Oh,
It has the old slideshow somehow.
okay.
Just click on
Yeah, let me just pull it up and then we'll have it, but
My question is for the zero depth, is that what you're calling it? The zero depth area?
Right.
Is that area stay largely the same as it is now?
So that will be the design things we'll be working on. So, it's.
That would be the only thing that changes.
Yeah, so if you figure we cut that off of the existing pool, and then what configuration do we want, how big can we make it, how deep do we want to make it? So that'll be the thing that's talked about going forward, is what do we want that to look like?
Yeah, we're not
Turn it.
expecting it to look exactly like that.
Do we leave it the
That's-
same?
That's how it lays now, and
Right.
that's just the line where we're separating it. But that's what the engineers will come back with. Here's what the design team and the architect and engineers come up with some options.
Question. At the public meetings, is it possible to focus one of the public meetings with little kids there? That would be,
Like Corey,
wouldn't that be cool?
Hi, John. It's good to see you. My name is Corey Wallace, and I serve the city as our Director of Communications and Community Relations. One of the goals for this particular project is to design a project that feels fresh and new to the community. And one of the, I think, missed opportunities that we didn't see as an opportunity, and it really is to sit with young people and ask them to answer questions about the direction of the pool. We can do so in a way that's boundaried and respectful to what the reality is, but we can also ask them, what does, for example, if you have an option between 3 slides, what would that look like?
Yes.
What colors do you like to see in a pool environment? So yeah, we can ask some questions and make sure to engage young people.
Great.
Yes, I agree with you.
It'd be fun.
Any final comments from the board? All right, public comment?
Ollie, go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Holly Krebs, and I organize the Don't Shrink Our Pool petition, and our coalition of citizens have advocated for the optimal pool renovation we can get for the $6.1 million our city is planning on spending on this project. There are several significant decisions still to be made about the outdoor pool renovation, and our group would like to make sure these issues are considered before final decisions are made. And I'm hoping that your board will consider and discuss these concerns today and during future meetings on this issue. We believe the most important long-term issue to be discussed is the location of the shallow end. A significant stormwater drainage pipe lies just west of the zero-depth end of the pool. Nick Hoyt, the city's stormwater engineer, says this portion of our city's stormwater piping is quite old, and he reported that MSO and Parks and Rec discussed how the storm tunnel and/or the soils may be contributing to the failures of the zero-depth area. John Gress, a former Parks and Recreation construction and maintenance supervisor, also has concerns about the soil stability under the pool. During his tenure with the city, he replaced concrete decking on the west side of the pool and discovered that the soil under this decking had very little integrity. He described the soil as quote-unquote mush. Mr. Gress is concerned that the stormwater drainage pipes have cracks in it that allow subsoil to be pulled into these pipes during large storms and then washed away to the river. Continued soil erosion under the pool could continue to compromise the pool's structural integrity, is his concern. Our coalition believes the best solution might be moving the shallow end to a different location within the Aquatic Center, but the most recent plan appears to locate the new shallow end in the same location as the current shallow end. The slide and play structure replacements also need to be determined. The visuals for the originally approved pool renovation indicated that our current long blue twirly slide would be replaced with a short, straight slide. It is not clear what the plans are for this slide in the repair renovation plan, and our community wants to make sure that this long curly slide is replaced with a comparable replacement for our children. Similarly, we want to make sure that the play structure that would replace the current shallow end's play structure will be excellent. This slide and play structure are the two main play elements of the pool for the children, other than the diving section, and their quality significantly affects the experience of hundreds of children who play there. Finally, our community asked for more and better shade structures in the opinion surveys, and Evan Carante, the city's ADA specialist, says that shade is an ADA issue because many people with spinal cord injuries can't adequately regulate their body temperature. We would like to advocate for not just rebuilding the current shade structure, but redesigning and building more and better shade in the final design. Thank you for your time.
I have a question. Have these,
You bring it back, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I think we can take
Yeah.
additional board comments.
have the comments that Holly made, have they been conveyed to staff and the design team before?
They've been conveyed through public process, I would say.
Yeah, those comments, Holly and I are in conversation, and they have been communicated to me. She operates very transparently, and I think they could be part of our community engagement process moving forward. And we're planning on incorporating those discussions.
So I don't see that we have a role at this point in that.
Any final board comments on this topic? Okay, no actions needed, so we'll move on to the next agenda item. Our last full agenda item, I think, for the evening before the director's report. The Unmistakable Events Grant Application Review.
Can you go to the website?
Oh, now you're challenging. Where do you want it to be?
Just lawrenceks.org.
are you going to our page or
To the TGT,
TGT page?
the page, yeah. Unmistakable Events.
I'm going to go a different way because I know how to get there a lot faster. From our page, because I have.
As long as we can get there from here, that's all I care about. So,
This one right here?
yes, thank you.
Okay, wait a minute, I need to share. I don't know where the thing went.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, let me just, can I move this? Oh, well, go ahead, you're fine. Oh, I
Is
guess
it
I need
it's
to move
sharing?
this?
Yeah.
I was hoping to move that.
The thing is, I want the board to
I
be
know,
able to see
I
it too.
know.
There you go. Thank you,
I
sorry.
know, I'm just have to move all this stuff over here. So just a second. How do I move?
I remember when we didn't have this technology. It
There we
seems
go.
like
Okay.
life may have been simpler in some ways.
An overhead projector.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I need to move
Well,
that
remember
one
the,
too,
the,
Can I move this,
Maximum.
There we go. Oh, good.
okay, so I'm going to go back to John Nalbandian and his effort in the board and commission restructuring. And one of the things that came out of that was that the TGT Grant Advisory Board was disbanded. And so that actually gives us a new opportunity to take a look at the TGT Grant Program and revamp it according to a lot of the feedback we've gotten over the years about concerns about equity and transparency and other things like that. So what?
Nothing, go ahead.
So this is the web page with the new grant program. The grant applications are actually open right now. It is now called the Unmistakable Events Grant Program. That seemed to be more understandable to the community, and quite honestly, for those of us and staff that are managing more than one of these grant programs, it's good to have a much clearer name, because TGT tends to get confusing to everybody. So that's what we've done, is changed it. Can you scroll down a little bit?
Sure I can.
So without diving into all of these, we have new updated guidelines that really reflect the strategic plan, sorry, dry air, and the key performance indicators. So we really have adapted things in the best possible way. And the best way for me to exhibit that is if you click on the events program scoring rubric. So we've also updated the scoring rubric. I even color-coded it according to the city brand and to the different KPI areas, so you see it there. And all those scores are going to be calculated individually by an ad hoc committee, much like the advisory board, but we're trying to expand it to get a breadth of perspective on this. And so this shows, actually scroll down a little bit, there's the scoring. So right now we have 11 applications in. Wednesday's the deadline. What I need is a representative from this board and from the Cultural Arts Commission who'd be willing to, the good news is the process has been streamlined. So what we're going to do is after we get all these grants in, we do all of this online so we can put it into a nice tidy package where they're all laid out in the same fashion. So it's a lot easier to review them because you know what each one is, the structure of each one of them. Having reviewed many grants in my life, it's nice to have a nice structure around it. So we'll receive that on December 11th, and then I'm going to send it out to this ad hoc committee. And then I can't remember the deadline, but we have a meeting on January 3rd. We're trying to keep this in track with the annual process. And a lot of these events start early in the year, so we're really trying to make this align with these grant organizers. So we would send out all of those applications and ask the volunteers to score them individually, and then send those scores back to me, and then I put them into another matrix, which allows us to see visually standard deviations, so that we can see, you know, what's popular, but what also is hitting either a high or low note to encourage dialogue. So maybe that new event that maybe doesn't have the notoriety gets an advantage. Somebody can argue in favor of it and say, let's give this one a try. Let's give them some money to make sure that they have an opportunity as well to help make it more competitive. And then there would be a meeting to deliberate on January 3rd. So that's the process that's, and I am very respectful of the fact that it's all during the holidays. That's why we tried to keep it as a long a period of time as possible, so people have time to maybe go in and do a few grant reviews each day over the course of the holidays, that type of thing. So that's what it is. I can provide more answers if you have any questions, and I'm just looking for a volunteer who's raring to go on reading these grants. It's always fascinating. It really is, to see the different events that come up and how creative people are in inventing these events and things. So that is my request to you all.
I had a question. I'm not volunteering. Although I might. How big is the ad hoc committee, Porter? You'll have someone from here.
Excuse me. 7 is what we committed to. I actually have 2 members of the advisory board. I thought that having that continuity of experience might be helpful, and they were eager to join in because they had signed up for the advisory board. So we're going to have that, and I have sort of I have an 8th person just in case. So it'll be at least 7 and possibly 1 more person to help us make sure we get a thorough review of this.
And I'm sorry, I understand that the review of the grant applications will be mostly online, but then what is the time commitment for actual meetings and coming together to discuss?
So there's 1 meeting, which will be actually reviewing the scores and deliberating about the awards. Very honestly, we typically have double the ask for the amount of money that's available. So we have $150,000. We usually get well over $300,000 in ask. So it's very competitive at that level. And certainly we have very popular and long-standing events that, it's natural to want to fund them, but we also have new and upcoming events that are also seeking funding. So trying to find that balance and, give appropriate awards so you're not just sort of sending a message more, we're really trying to help you. So how do you find that balance is really challenging.
Porter, and I think something I would say is 2 years ago, we had 45 applicants. Last year, I think we had 32.
It's averaged about 30-ish.
Yeah, so when because that you have to take in consideration, you're going to be reviewing all 30 on your own time, and then you go into that meeting that he's describing with everybody else to talk about they may ask you, why did you vote for that? I mean, why did you give points for that and that type of thing? So.
Right. And we want to encourage dialogue. So to answer your question, it's 1 meeting, and it usually lasts no more than an hour.
Would you have an estimate for the amount of time it would take for somebody to review like all these applications?
Obviously, the number of applications is up in the air. How
long is the application, maybe, is a good question.
Yeah.
Is it
That's
on
what
there?
I'm curious about.
Yeah.
Or the,
I think there was a link.
yeah, there was a link.
I don't know if you can see go ahead and try to.
I need to share just a second. Took off the share because
Oh, right.
where did it go? It went over to this side, didn't it?
No, there you go.
Okay, sorry. Okay, is that it? Yeah. I'll get better over time, folks. I apologize.
You're doing great.
So there's the application.
Application form, click on that. So these are the
Questions.
event information. We ask a lot of budgetary information. I think this is going to look more intimidating than it appears on a PDF, which is nice about the format of this.
Yeah, so it looks like we're asking, how much funding, when is it, the duration.
And let me qualify, we're not asking you to go and scrutinize their budget intent. That's not really the job. It's good to look at it. Does it seem viable? Do they seem professional enough that they can implement this type of event, that sort of thing? But this isn't about that level. It's really more about we want intentionally all these different perspectives and perhaps different experiences in the community to be able to articulate from that vantage point, why does this event, valuable for the city and the community?
And I think it would go back to our strategic plan, our unmistakable identity. What are those elements that we're looking for? Does it meet those criteria of our UIs? So
right.
That's the other piece to this. So it doesn't.
I had another question. In some of these I've attended in the past, the event organizers come and present is that part of this meeting?
No.
Or so
in the past, we've done a speed dating event, if you will, to give the event organizers a second opportunity to present their information. There was a lot of value in that in one way, but on the other hand, it was actually just adding more information to the application process. So I felt comfortable letting that go.
Okay.
A lot of people have asked about that. It was a fair amount of work for the board members. With a board that's committed to this process and that's their sole task, it seemed a little easier to do that. With this ad hoc board and our somewhat urgent schedule, I decided it was unnecessary.
Okay.
Any other questions or anybody willing to volunteer? It looked like a brief application.
No,
It doesn't seem,
it doesn't seem insurmountable.
right.
I Is this making up for being late?
We could have done this first and just assigned you.
While you were gone, we decided.
Yeah, we'd updated you. Anybody else? I can do it. I volunteer to serve on this task force.
Yay.
Thank you, Lisa.
Lisa?
Thank you.
I've applied for grants before. I've never reviewed them, so this will be fun.
It's a great learning experience. I found that actually made me a better grant writer too, to be honest with you. But I will make sure I will be at your beck and call, help you through the process. I think once you start doing it, what I found is after you read like 3 or 4 grants, you start getting into something of a rhythm, and it kind of takes care of itself fairly quickly. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Way to go.
Thank you, Lisa. All right, moving on, our director's report.
Okay, outside of the things that I spoke about right now, there's just a couple of things to update you on, not too much. The city is currently undergoing the 2026 budget process. We've jumped the process up, moved it up by about 5 months. We have a lot of work to do based on the commission's request for us to revisit every program and, based on the outcome of the 2025 budget. So we are deep in the throes of the budget process, a lot of deadlines, a lot of questions, a lot of justifications. So we're still, and the trajectory is still to get it approved next September. We're just now proposing and looking at what realistically we can what we can achieve in 2026 given the realities of the budget situation. So that is, I would say, that is the number one priority right now for the department. The other thing I mentioned is January 2025 we should be able to present the master plan. Now, understanding that these two things don't necessarily, connect in the middle, so that will be accepted and received with the understanding that some tough decisions still need to be made, even though there's a lot of recommendations in there that we would want to execute, but we'll have to be very selective as to what we're able to carry out. So, when we do propose that master plan, we're going to have to keep it in the context of, okay, 2026 might not be the year to execute everything. Keeping in mind it's a 10-year plan, so it gives us a direction even, next year, 2-3 years out. So it does allow us to reprioritize some things as well during this time. So it'll be useful in that way as well. So that's pretty much all I have, the big things that we've been working on.
Thank you. I don't know if we should ask for questions, sorry.
Sorry. Oh,
Yeah.
you
Any-
can? On
any
my
questions
update?
for- Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
Okay. Seeing no interest in questions, the next agenda item is one of our new ones, the roundtable, the board items. Are there any agenda items that you'd like to request be considered for future agendas?
I just
John?
have a question. I went to the art fair over the weekend, with hundreds and hundreds of people, right? And I thought to myself, where did these people come from? which connected me to something that Ruth informed me about some time ago. Ruth, did you tell everybody about what that, you could trace?
Yeah, Explore Lawrence has invested in software. It's called Placer AI, and we are able to run reports of, counts of people who have come to certain events within points of interest within the city, and where they come from and how long they stayed. So we are able to provide that information to partners in the city.
As well as demographics.
Right.
Income, so we just, three of us, or four of us met with Placer AI today. I integrated Placer AI in the city of Mesa where I came from, so I'm very familiar with it, but I want to make sure my staff understood kind of what it is, because I understood it thoroughly. So everything that Ruth is mentioning, we kind of went over today in a little bit more depth and what that system's capable of doing.
Is that something that we'd be interested in?
It's something we're interested in. The price tag is pretty hefty.
Oh, no problem.
When I took it to the city of Mesa with people with a population of $500,000, because it is based on population, that was about $63,000 a year. Here, it's a little bit less, but not proportionately less. It's not 1/5 the price, unfortunately. So it's something that, yes, I'm absolutely interested in. I'm an advocate for it, but I don't know that at this point we can make any type of decisions as to bringing it on because of the cost. So we're going to have to depend on our partners to help us with some of that information for now.
Well, if it does, then I'd be an advocate.
Okay.
I just think it'd be fascinating, especially, we make assumptions about East Lawrence, West Lawrence, everybody's this and that, and
Yeah.
it'd be nice to have some data.
Well, one of the things also, for instance, and it would be helpful if we had it, or and I would encourage people to go to maybe to Explore Lawrence and get for some, but it'll help also with grant applications, for instance. You can have somebody, we bring 60,000 people. Well, that's not what this says. Not necessarily
Right.
catch it, or they underestimate, right? We're thinking, no, this is a big impact, bigger than the proposer, and.
Or this is past data, this is what we'd like to focus on, this.
Yep. So there's a lot of, there's
What's it called, Placer?
AI.
Placer.ai.
Placer.ai.
It's not AI.
Not AI.
Yeah,
No, I don't
it's
believe
not,
it is.
yeah.
Well, I think they use it on the back end, but,
Yeah, exactly.
Great.
so,
Yeah.
I mean, that'd
And
be
it's-
helpful, even like with the parade.
anything.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Right.
Unbelievable, weather was
Anything.
great. All the events at a sports pavilion, with
Oh, absolutely.
all the.
Oh, yeah.
And you can
where all those
compare,
people are coming from.
yeah, you can compare year over year, day over day, week over week, going back to 2017.
And we can see where they came from and where they went to right after. So if they
Went to
were
the
in
parade
sports
and then
pavilion
went-
and went to lunch, we can see where that
I
was.
think
and-
when we implemented the key cards, we were hoping to get some demographics, but that's not going to get out of state. I mean, not really. I mean, it's going to get the people in town that use it, where they came, their zip code or age or.
Yeah, we're still making a lot of assumptions that this program does provide. So, yeah, it's a good, valuable tool. But don't be scared of it. It's anonymized information, so it doesn't say
That's right.
Lee
It doesn't
Ice,
say
where
that
you came and
so
went
it's
from.
there.
It's just saying
All
general.
my information.
Yeah. So,
Okay, great question. Any other questions, comments, or items for future agendas?
And I think this was, originally, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's more about the time that you wanted to say things, that you had brought up, or just to kind of have some dialogue with us as a department as well.
This is Marilyn Hull. I would just mention, I had an email exchange with Luis about the Remnant Prairie at Prairie Park Nature Center and some questions that were raised in the media recently about whether the city's going to develop a conservation plan or maintenance plan for those types of remnant prairies. And Luis did answer and say that they're basically you're working on it. So I don't know if anybody else saw that, but it was an article probably within the last month, and that I don't know about how you make these things known to the public, but there was some complaining about the city, and I wish they knew that this is being worked on. Maybe that's just a comment, not a request.
Yeah. Well, no, I appreciate those too. And as communicators, Porter and I will continue to try to find ways to get some of our story out as well. And sometimes we don't even know what's going on within our department. So we've got to understand too that there are things working on that. And I'm actually creating a meeting with our managers to kind of circumvent some of the issues that we have, like when we have to immediately close a playground or something. That way we kind of get the schedule ahead of time and can really work on communicating with the public on what we're doing, so.
Yeah, especially when there are issues where the public is questioning the intentions.
Right.
And credibility of the department. It's hard to just read that and not know that any response is coming. So.
Thank you. In that vein, it sounded like some decisions will be made about the community engagement for the pool. Would it be possible to add an update about that to the agenda next meeting?
Yes, and any other ideas? Like I said, our routine would be that I meet with Lisa, probably a couple of weeks from now, and come up with those agenda items. So this would be the appropriate time to, bring it up. And the reality of the next meeting, however, is that we're having our consultants come in and present. So it may be two months from now, if time doesn't permit on the other one, but it may be sufficient time, and we can gauge that once we talk to the consultants as to how long they'll have. So we can add it and by then we should have somewhat of a sketch. Either way, we can bring it, at least as an update, if it's not a full report, but an update.
Thank you.
Sure.
Could I suggest an agenda item? Would that be appropriate? I want to request that you share with us the data about the relationship between parks and public health. She's a data person, so this is not a stretch, right?
Right.
And so I just think, that if we can actually see the impact, then it's potentially, publishable, or, the newspaper might want to get it and so on. It'd be great to have a community conversation around the issue of, look, at parks aren't just for fun and entertainment and so on and so forth. And who knows, it might even lead to a change in the city code.
Well, that's the hope,
Development of a
right?
certain, development of a certain scope should require a certain amount of green space. It probably does now, but to actually have data. Anyway, okay, Vicki?
Okay.
Just out of curiosity, how long a presentation would you be ready, prepared, or able to?
I can be flexible, and it sounds like February or March would probably be right, with January being fairly.
Yeah, probably February or March.
I can be ready for anything by then.
Okay.
I know when we've had this presentation before, it's usually about 20 minutes, and then there's discussion after it. I don't know if that's what you were looking at, or what would you?
Sure.
Because again, when we look at that agenda item, I don't want to put this and then three other things stacked on it too, so.
Easily contain it to 20 minutes.
It's harder than you think, believe me. I
Well,
always
then
think,
she
here's
could
a
put the-
10-minute
then she could put her,
presentation.
you guys could put her slides online. You know, for.
Right, right. Yeah, we can put them up on before
Yeah.
with the agenda.
Cool.
Oh, yeah,
And-
that
Or
would
after
definitely get
too, because
published.
like these presentations, we put up online once I get them all, before I do the minutes and all that, so.
Okay, great.
The other thing with the meeting with Lisa, before you leave, let's kind of talk, because, with the holiday coming up, and then it may be easier after the first of the year, because it's not until the 13th, which is mid-month, so, and I know we need to coordinate. Were you looking at having a joint meeting with both of them? So this date may not be,
The date is correct.
oh, it is, okay.
Yeah, I'd
so-
like to have both meetings on this date, if
Okay.
possible. This
So-
meeting's earlier in the day, theirs is 7:30, if we can, this is for the Art Commission, you'll ask them to.
And the Art Commission would just be present for that one agenda item,
Right.
so they.
Oh, okay.
Encapsulate.
And they could even be on Zoom
We
with
can do
us.
it virtually, yes.
If we don't need them in person, I don't know if we'd rather have them in person, I don't know. So there's
I think
discussion.
either way would be fine.
Yeah, we don't need to force them to be here.
True. Okay, that's good to know.
I have one quick question about going forward. Are we meeting in this room?
So tell me, because I was confused as well.
My understanding is that meetings are to be in here. They moved some of them because of municipal court coming in during the daytime. So there were some meetings that were like at 3 and 3:30 that they relocated to other places. When I went to say, hey, we need to change the agenda to our office, they told us that it's here, so.
Okay. And because it's still wrong on the calendar on the lawrenceks.org website.
It has,
That must be
The admin
something
office.
that
Oh, no.
It's all right.
Kevin has, maybe, a calendar.
You know, not on the iCompass calendar for the agenda items.
If you go to there's an event, or there's the
Yeah,
event.
I think it's
oh, the
Kevin's.
calendar.
And so
Okay.
That's probably a holdover from
From this thing?
Yeah, that's.
Yeah,
a while back. No, thank you for reminding us. That's a calendar that we tend not to use as much
Yeah,
as we
that's-
used to.
Yeah.
and I don't have
So, but that's
control
the
over that
point.
one.
And that explains it. You
and
don't
I-
have control over it.
And I didn't even know it was there.
You didn't know that calendar
Now I
existed.
So
know.
I feel.
So now I know another place that I need to check on things, so
Thank
thank you for that. Because again, this is one of those things that,
Yeah,
yeah, cities have, anyway.
a lot of moving
And-
parts. Thank you.
Any other board items? All right. So we have for January, the master plan update.
And if we can, and I will expect to have an update also on the public engagement for
Thank
the
you.
pool.
Okay, and then our next meeting is January 13th at 5:30. And with that, I think we're at the end of our agenda. Is anybody willing to move that we adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Hi.
Thank you,
And
everybody.
I sincerely apologize for being late. I should have known it was here.
You went over.